It's about who you've become. The reward isn't just the blessing, it's the wisdom, the depth, the discernment you now carry. The version of you that's emerging is nothing like the one who started this journey. You are more anchored, more alert, more aligned. And now, you can carry what would have crushed you before. Chosen one. The tables are turning, but they're turning not because you manipulated them. They're turning because you trusted God, even when you didn't see results. That's favor. And when God decides it's your time, no force in hell can delay it. So receive this next season with quiet strength. Walk in it with grace. Don't let pride distort the purity of your testimony. Keep your heart humble. Keep your eyes fixed on the giver, not just the gift. Now that you've endured the wilderness, passed through the fire, and stepped into divine reversal, what happens next isn't just about receiving. It's about responsibility. Chosen one. The blessing wasn't the end. It was the beginning. You've been entrusted, not just favored. And heaven is watching what you do with what was given. This is the most overlooked part of the journey: stewardship. So many cry out for breakthrough, but when it comes, they forget the weight of obedience that brought them here. They begin to relax, drift, or compromise. And slowly, almost without noticing, they start to lose what was once divinely restored. This is why Jesus warned in Luke 12:48, "To whom much is given, much will be required." God didn't elevate you to relax. He positioned you to lead, to protect, to carry the light for others still walking through their own darkness. You are now a keeper of wisdom. You've seen too much, learned too deeply, and grown too far to go back. And that's why the enemy shifts his strategy here. He's not after your new job, relationship, or platform. He's after your discipline, your gratitude, your daily surrender. Because if he can't stop your blessing, he'll try to distract your stewardship. This is the moment to stay grounded. Keep praying even when things are going well. Keep listening even when the storm has passed. Keep sowing even when your harvest arrives. Because this is where legacy is built, not in the initial breakthrough, but in consistent, holy stewardship of what you've been given. Look at Solomon. He was granted wisdom, wealth, and power beyond measure. But in the later part of his life, he turned his heart away. He multiplied wives, aligned with idols, and began to drift from the God who gave him everything. 1 Kings 11. His story is a warning. Unguarded abundance becomes spiritual decline. So what does stewardship look like for you? It means honoring your time, protecting your boundaries, staying connected to the word, remaining accountable, refusing to compromise, even when you have the influence to get away with it. It means remembering who you were before the breakthrough and staying faithful to the one who carried you through. Chosen one, you were not restored just to enjoy comfort. You were restored to become a lighthouse. There are people watching you now, people who don't even know they need hope yet. And your story, your consistent faithfulness is going to speak louder than any sermon. You are not just called to experience God's power. You are called to reflect it. So stay alert, stay rooted, stay humble. Because favor that isn't guarded becomes a target, but favor that is stewarded multiplies. As we close this journey, Let this be your declaration. Type it in the comments. I will honor what God gave me. Then like this message if the whole series has spoken to your spirit. Subscribe if you want to walk this journey fully, because this platform isn't entertainment. It's spiritual training for those who are chosen, called, and ready to carry something holy. And remember this, you are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared and now entrusted. Don't ignore this, because if you do, don't blame God later. This is the difference between the called and the chosen. Many are called, but few walk through the fire and still say yes. Few remain when it stops feeling good. Few surrender when it costs them comfort. But chosen one, you were built for this. You weren't called to convenience. You were called to carry the weight of purpose and still remain faithful. So when things get harder after you obey, don't retreat. Don't blame God. Don't assume you heard wrong. He's still with you. In fact, He's closer now than He's ever been. Because when the testing comes, the teacher is always present, even if silent. Here's what you must hold onto. He's not just trying to give you a blessing. He's building you into someone who can hold it. That's why it's taking longer than you thought. That's why people walked away. That's why nothing feels familiar anymore. He's making sure the version of you that walks into the promise is not the same version that almost walked away from it. Let God do the deep work. Don't fight the wilderness. Let it shape your discernment. Let it refine your worship. Let it purify your motives. And when it's over, you'll step out like Christ did, full of power, full of clarity, and fully ready to complete the assignment. There's a reason God often calls you to obey in secret, because the deepest transformation happens when no one's watching. Before the platform comes the process, before the reward comes the refining, and before the public elevation comes the private obedience. Chosen one, what you do in hidden places matters more than what you perform in visible ones. God isn't interested in showmanship, He's looking for stewardship. Can He trust you to obey when there's no audience? Can you still say yes when there's no applause? Because true favor begins when you stop performing and start surrendering. Jesus said, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly." Matthew 6:6. That's not just a comfort. That's a principle. God watches what others ignore. He sees the moments when you chose silence over argument. The times you walked away from temptation. The nights you prayed when your heart felt dry and your mind was numb. He saw it, and none of it was wasted. This is why you can't base your value on visibility. The world rewards performance. Heaven rewards obedience. Sometimes your greatest seed is sown in solitude, and sometimes your breakthrough begins with a whisper no one else hears. David was anointed king while still in obscurity. He went back to tending sheep after the oil was poured on his head. No crown, no throne, just waiting, preparing, serving. But the hidden season didn't disqualify him, it made him ready. The lion and the bear prepared him for Goliath. The solitude trained him for sovereignty. The secret place became his strength. You may be in that same space right now, obeying but unseen, faithful but unnoticed, trusting but tired, and you wonder, does any of this matter? Yes, it does. Because what you're doing in silence is building something eternal. That journal you keep writing in, those prayers no one knows about, that forgiveness you keep offering in secret, it's not in vain. God is building your reward behind the veil. He's arranging opportunities, preparing divine alignments, and storing up favor not for who the world thinks you are, but for who he knows you are. That's why comparison is so dangerous. You're comparing someone else's public moment to your private process, but they're not the same. And heaven doesn't measure success the way earth does. Stay low. Stay hidden if he keeps you there. Let your roots grow deeper than your reach. Because when the time comes, what God reveals will not be able to be. Ignore. In Deuteronomy 28:2, God promises, all these blessings shall come upon you and overtake you, if you obey the voice of the Lord your God. Notice that overtake you. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to strive. Obedience will attract what striving never could. So keep going. Keep obeying. Keep trusting. There comes a point in every chosen one's life when the silence breaks. Not gradually, not gently, but suddenly. After seasons of obscurity, struggle, and unseen obedience, God releases what no effort could force. And when he moves, it's undeniable. The shift is not subtle, it's supernatural. This is the divine reversal. The moment when loss becomes gain, waiting turns into fulfillment, and closed doors begin to open in succession, not because of timing, but because of alignment. You've endured the private refining. You've surrendered in secret. You've obeyed when nothing made sense. And now, God begins to respond in a way that no man, system, or enemy can stop. In Psalm 126:5-6, it says, those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who goes out, weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. This isn't poetic exaggeration. This is spiritual law. Every tear you cried while obeying in the dark, it watered your harvest. Every moment you said yes while shaking, it laid the foundation of what's about to manifest. God is a God of seasons. And when your season of reversal arrives, you don't have to make announcements. Your fruit will speak for you. People will see the shift, but they won't understand the crushing that preceded it. That's why you can't explain your process to everyone. They wouldn't understand the wilderness if they never walked it. But you do. You know what it cost. You know what it took to stay faithful when it felt like nothing was changing. You know how hard it was to forgive, to serve, to worship while waiting. And now, God is about to honor that, not just with restoration, but with more than you asked. In Joel 2:25, God says, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Years, not just moments. This is where divine justice enters the story. Not human revenge, not petty victories, but holy compensation. God doesn't just give you what you lost, he gives you what you didn't even know you missed. Opportunities you thought were gone forever. Time you thought was wasted. Connections you thought were broken beyond repair. But it's not just about what you receive. God doesn't speak like the world speaks. He doesn't shout over noise. He whispers into silence. That's why he's been allowing the noise in your life to grow louder so you finally get tired of it and return to stillness, because it's in stillness that you hear the next step, not in the chaos, not in the crowd, but in the quiet surrender. Remember Jonah? God told him to go to Nineveh. He ran. He boarded the wrong ship. And it took a storm, a crew of unbelievers, and a whale to bring him back into alignment. Some of us are in storms not because the devil is after us, but because we're headed in the wrong direction, and even that is mercy. Because God disciplines those he loves, Hebrews 12:6. Chosen one, you are not being punished. You are being pursued. Your delays don't cancel your calling, but they do cost you time. They cost peace. They cost people. And some doors, once missed, never reopen. This is why heaven is pressing you now. Because this isn't about just avoiding pain, it's about stepping into purpose. It's about finally moving into the role you were sent here to fulfill. And if you've been asking, why is everything around me shaking? Maybe the better question is, what am I holding onto that God is trying to remove? He'll shake relationships. He'll shake routines. He'll shake false identities. Not to hurt you, but to strip you of anything that threatens your obedience. Because your next season can't be built on compromise. This is what divine love looks like. It protects your purpose even if it offends your comfort. God isn't interested in your temporary convenience. He's committed to your eternal calling. So, when you cry out, God, why is this happening? The answer may be, because I love you too much to let you stay where you are. If you felt emotionally torn lately, confused, heavy, distant from peace, that may not be an attack. That may be the consequence of ignoring spiritual instructions. The Holy Spirit convicts, not to shame you, but to guide you back to alignment, back to obedience, back to power. But you must move. You must choose. You must surrender. Before we continue, take a moment and search your heart. What have you been resisting? What conviction have you been silencing? Don't just listen, respond. Drop a comment. I choose alignment. Sometimes you think it takes massive faith to change your life. But the truth is, God has never required you to move mountains. He simply asked you to believe he could. Jesus said, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, nothing will be impossible for you. Matthew 17:20. A mustard seed, tiny, almost invisible. Yet, when planted, it grows into something strong enough to give life, shade, and protection. That means even in your fear, even in your exhaustion, your small yes still matters. That trembling obedience, that half-whispered prayer, that one act of surrender no one else sees. Heaven sees it, and heaven moves because of it. You've been waiting to feel ready, but obedience doesn't require you to feel anything. It only asks that you move. There's power in simple, quiet obedience, the kind that says, God, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm tired of running. Show me the next step, and he will. Because he never ignores the voice that calls him in faith, no matter how small. Consider Abraham. God told him to leave everything, his country, his family, his comfort, and go to a land he hadn't even seen yet. Scripture says he went out, not knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11:8. No GPS, no map, just faith. That one act became the foundation of generations. That's what your obedience can do. It doesn't just bless you, it blesses those after you. But here's the part many ignore. Faith without movement remains dormant. God doesn't honor potential. He honors action. You've been carrying vision, prophetic dreams, deep inner knowing. But vision without obedience is wasted glory. There are ideas you've shelved, assignments you've postponed, gifts you've silenced. Not because you weren't anointed, but because you hesitated. And yet, it's not too late. That's the message the enemy doesn't want you to believe. He wants you stuck in regret, distracted by delay, paralyzed by guilt. But the truth is, God's mercy is new every morning. Lamentations 3:22-23. If you're breathing, you're still eligible, still chosen, still expected to rise. You don't need the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step. Maybe it's deleting a number. Maybe it's waking up 1 hour earlier to pray. Maybe it's writing the first page of what you were called to create. Whatever it is, do it now. Because what feels small to you can unlock something eternal. This is how you begin again. Not with grand gestures, but with one act of faith. One private surrender. One shift in direction. The angels won't always announce it, but heaven will recognize it. Your name has already been spoken in places your feet haven't reached yet. But access is tied to obedience. Right now, close your eyes. Ask God, what's the one step you want me to take? Don't overthink. Just listen, then do it. Obedience doesn't always open doors gently. Sometimes, when you finally take that first step in faith, everything around you gets harder before it gets better. You start moving toward what God called you to do, and suddenly people fall away. Opportunities disappear, confusion rises, and you begin to question, did I make a mistake? But listen closely. Chosen one, obedience is not always followed by comfort. Sometimes it's followed by resistance, because what you're stepping into is no longer just personal. It's spiritual. The moment you align your life with God's instruction, you interrupt what the enemy tried to establish. That's why the pushback comes. It's not proof that you're off track. It's confirmation that you're finally on the right one. Remember Jesus, after being baptized and confirmed by the voice of God himself, was immediately led into the wilderness. Matthew 4:1. Not into ease, not into applause, into testing, into isolation, into hunger. But it was in that wilderness that his identity was solidified, his authority declared, and his purpose affirmed. Don't misinterpret your wilderness. It's not a rejection. It's preparation. When you start to obey God fully, He doesn't just want your actions. He wants your posture. He allows the wilderness to strip you of all false sources of strength. He removes the crutches, relationships, titles, routines. So, when He elevates you, there's no confusion about where your help came from. That's what spiritual maturity looks like. You obey even when there's no immediate reward. You trust even when your prayers seem unanswered. You move even when your knees are shaking. There was a moment not long ago when you felt it. Not a voice, not a vision, but a quiet shift in your soul. Something inside you whispered, "You're meant for more." You paused, But then life pulled you back into its rhythm. Work, worry, distraction, and that sacred pull faded into background noise. Chosen one, you know what I'm talking about. Not everyone hears this call, and not everyone who hears it answers. But once it touches you, nothing else satisfies, not success, not comfort, not approval. You've tried to silence it. You've told yourself, maybe later, but later has come and gone more than once. Now listen carefully. This is your moment of decision, not next week, not when life gets easier, right now. Because if you ignore this, don't blame God when the storm hits. Don't say he was silent when he sent you signs and you kept scrolling. Don't say he didn't care when he stirred your spirit while the world numbed your senses. Don't say you weren't warned when your heart kept aching, not from lack but from delay. You were never made for comfort. You were made for kingdom. Work. The pain, the betrayal, the loneliness, it wasn't punishment. It was purification. You were being shaped, not shattered, but delays in obedience become detours in destiny. Scripture is clear. If you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. Isaiah 1:19. Willing is not enough. Obedience must follow. So many want the promise, but not the process. They want the crown, but not the cross. They want divine peace, but keep ignoring divine instruction. Let me ask you this. What has God been asking of you that you keep pushing aside? To cut ties with someone draining your spirit? To walk away from a habit that's robbing your clarity? To finally step into the purpose that's been burning in you since childhood? This is not a guilt trip. This is a soul wake-up call. Because purpose delayed is peace denied. And every time you say, not yet, you say no to the life God already prepared for you. You are not behind, but you are on the edge of a spiritual deadline. That's why this message found you now, not a second earlier, not a moment too late, because heaven's timing is precise. This isn't just about your blessings. It's about the people tied to your obedience. There are lives waiting for your yes. There are souls linked to your purpose. If you don't rise, they don't receive. And that's why heaven is serious about your alignment. You weren't saved to stay silent. You weren't awakened to stay asleep. This moment is sacred. Take a breath. Look inward. Then look upward. Before we continue, pause and honor this moment. Like this if it's already piercing your spirit. Comment with "I'm ready to obey" to declare your alignment. Subscribe if you know this was meant for you. There was a moment not long ago when something shifted deep within you. Not a loud voice, not a dramatic sign, just a quiet stirring. A holy discomfort. A sense that you were meant for something far beyond the routine of your current life. You didn't talk about it. You didn't fully understand it. But it was real. And it hasn't gone away. Chosen one. This is not just in your imagination. That tug on your heart, that ache in your spirit, that's the voice of the Most High calling you to alignment. And here's what many never realize. When God calls, He doesn't always repeat Himself in the same way. The more you delay, the harder it becomes to hear. And if you ignore this moment, don't blame God when doors close, when peace fades, when the path you could have walked disappears behind you. This message is not for the lukewarm. It's not for those content with survival. It's for those whose spirits are restless in mediocrity, those who can't shake the feeling that they're living below their assignment. You know deep down that you were made for something sacred, and the longer you resist it, the heavier life will feel. Not because you're cursed, but because you're misaligned. Scripture says, if you are willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land, Isaiah 1:19. Notice, it's not just willingness, obedience is the requirement. So many say they want purpose, but few want the process. They pray for peace while entertaining habits, people, and thoughts that directly contradict divine instruction. Then when chaos comes, they wonder where God is. But God is not mocked. His word doesn't return void. If He called you, He expects an answer. Ask yourself, what has God asked of you that you keep postponing? Maybe it's leaving a relationship that's draining your soul. Maybe it's finally starting the ministry or mission He placed in your heart. Maybe it's releasing a toxic habit that keeps dulling your discernment. Whatever it is, the cost of delay is rising, not just for you, but for everyone connected to your obedience. That's the part most people overlook. Your yes is not just for you. There are lives tied to your alignment. Your breakthrough unlocks theirs. This isn't about guilt. It's about awakening, because purpose delayed becomes peace denied. Every time you whisper "not yet," you unintentionally reject what heaven is trying to give you. And eventually, delay turns into disobedience. You weren't created to wander. You weren't formed to settle. You were chosen to build, to carry, to lead. And you know it. You've been feeling the pressure, the unease, the holy dissatisfaction. It's not depression, it's not failure, it's the weight of your unfulfilled calling pressing against the limits of your current life. God isn't punishing you, He's pulling you into position. But He won't force you. Heaven never overrides free will, but it does give warnings. And this message is one of them. So pause. Not just with your hands, pause with your heart. Take this seriously. Don't treat this like another video. You felt what's real and what's divine. This is one of those moments. Sometimes the most dangerous season of your life is not when you're suffering, it's when you're ignoring what God already showed you. You pray, asking for clarity, but the truth is, He's already spoken. The instruction has already been given. The prompting already felt. The warning already sent. And yet, so many chosen ones keep waiting for a different sign, a more convenient moment, or a softer truth. But spiritual delay is still disobedience. You don't need another confirmation. You need courage. Look back. How many doors closed not because God was against you, but because you hesitated too long? How many friendships became burdens because you refused to walk away when your spirit was already grieving? How many seasons felt stagnant because you stayed somewhere your purpose had outgrown? And yet, grace, you're still here. You're still being warned. You're still being loved enough to be corrected.